Welcome to 1982 Time Warp, Movies and Pop Culture 40 years later. Welcome to the Fandom Podcast special presentation of Time Warp. We're really excited because we're going to be discussing the year of 1982, and this is the second episode. And we'll be discussing the months of March and April. In the special edition, of course, over the last few years here at the Fandom Podcast Network, we've been celebrating the movies of the 80s and 90s. And this year we decided to time travel back to the 80s again and look back on the fantastic year of movies and pop culture for 1982, because 1982 is celebrating its 40th anniversary. Feel old yet? I sure do. Welcome to part 2 of Time Warp 1982. As I said, we're going to be discussing the months of April and March. I'm Kevin. I'm going to be your host, but I'd like to introduce my co-host for this special time travel journey back to 1982. I'd like to welcome Mr. Kyle Wagner. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, you just came in, buddy. How you doing?
I feel like I'm going to have to disappoint you, Kevin. Something happened between now and the last time warp.
What happened?
John Cusack repoed the Top Tub Time Machine.
Oh, no. What did it do? Is it working again, or did something else get spilled there? Hope it's still working.
I don't know. He said something about Craig Robinson took it somewhere, and we know that we don't. He said it's better if we just don't talk about it.
He'll be back in time. He'll be back. I swear. But you know what? We can't do these time warps because we need movie foo. And the master of movie foo is our lovely Lacey Pan. Welcome, Lacey. How are you?
I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. Can you guys hear me at all?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I don't know what happened. I could hear every word before you went out and brought me back in. Should I?
No, you're good. We can hear you now. We got video.
Can hear you, but I don't think she can. I don't think she can hear us. So I'm just going to tell her to watch the chat.
Well, how about this? I'll remove you very briefly, Lacey, and we'll bring you back in here. Get a little connection going here. So Kyle, go ahead and let her know that, and we'll get her back in on here. As we move forward here, though, we'll get Lacey back in here. First of all, thank you guys all for listening. And one of the things that we want to do a time warp here that we're taking a little bit different approach to is we are talking about movies that we haven't necessarily seen. We are talking about movies we have, but the reason why we want to talk about movies we haven't seen, because we want to let you know what's out there, because there's some movies that just got lost in the 80s ether. Whether it was they jumped out on the, out in the movies and didn't hit video, or they hit the, VHS, but then didn't come back. So we'll see. But Kyle, let me ask you really quickly, was there anything that you went back to visit, or are you, just ready to dive into part 2 here?
I'm just ready to dive into part 2. I'll have much more time to revisit when we get into part 3, and because there's a lot of stuff worth revisiting on this. But this is a very interesting grouping of films. I have to say here. So there's some interesting stories going on. Kevin, did you bring the popcorn, or was I supposed to bring the popcorn?
I always bring my own, so you got to get your own. But we have back Lacey.
Okay.
Lacey, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Okay, cool. I wanted to ask you, it's been a while since we did the first one because I got a little busy. I got married and took some time off and did husband and wife stuff and goofed around and stuff like that. But so we're coming out with part 2 here for the months of March and April, a little late. But I want to ask you, was there anything you remember going back and watching?
I didn't check the list. I know that I did. I can't remember what it was, though.
That's all right. Well, yeah. I just want to mention one of the movies I really wanted to see, but it's really expensive when you find the DVDs. But I did find one that I put down for like $30, but it was coming from Canada. And that was the movie, as you guys may remember, it was The Amateur. Remember this one right here, guys?
Absolutely.
Yes. Kyle had seen it. I had not. Lacey, had you seen this?
I think I remembered seeing it, but I didn't remember anything about it.
Gotcha. And I had the DVD coming to me, and then something happened. It just got lost. I never got it. The guy didn't know where it went, and it was tracking, and then it got lost somewhere in Kentucky. and I never received it. And so the guy just gave me my money back. And so one of these days I'll find the amateur, produced by Mario Kazar, by the way. And of course, starring Christopher Plummer, and it was an Arthur Hill film. And so hopefully one of these days, I tried to see it was streaming anywhere, but it was not. So, but guys, let's go ahead and get into the rest of the show here, because in the special edition of Time Warp, we are going to be discussing the rest of 1982 in this episode. But before we do that, let's let you know that we're going to take a step back in time to 1982. Let's fuel up that DeLorean and the flux capacitor. Slingshot around the sun aboard a captured Klingon bird of prey. Take a step into that blue police box or phone booth. Or step into that quantum leap accelerator. Or my favorite, Kyle, you tried to take it away, but I've got my own. Take a dip in that hot tub time machine as we travel back to 1981. We're going to remind you of what was happening in pop culture, sports, politics, television, and of course the movies of 1982. All right, guys. Now, if you're listening to this audio podcast, I highly recommend that you go to YouTube and watch this on YouTube, because we have visual aids. We're going to have posters of the movies that we're talking about, even posters of the movies that we're not going to talk about, and some other fun stuff regarding toys and other pop culture. So 82, the year you were born. If you are 40 years old and born in 82, some interesting stuff happened. I want to ask you, Lacey, did you ever say gnarly, dude, like totally, grody, rad, or gag me with a spoon?
I did not. I do remember hearing those words, but I was never like in the clique that would use them.
What about you, Kyle? Did you ever use any of those?
Well, dude, this was a totally gnarly podcast and only had one gag me with a spoon moment. It was really rad.
Okay. All right. Cool. Who had some Reebok high tops? Did anyone have those? Or swatches? Did you ever swatches too? I did. Yeah. Did you have more than one swatch on your wrist? Did you have more than one swatch?
I had a bunch of swatches. I think my sister, though, I ended up giving all of my swatches to my sister. But I do remember my very first swatch I got for my birthday that year.
Gotcha.
And it was the see-through one that everybody wanted.
That was the best one.
It was a little bit bigger than the rest of them.
Yeah.
Because they wanted you to be able to see all the little gears and
stuff. The problem with the see-through one, though, is that the watch band would get like kind of grody after a while. See how you use grody? See how you use grody? See how I did that? That's cool. All right, guys. We have some average cost here. So I'm going to share three of them here. First of all, the average monthly rent was $320. The U.S. postage stamp was 20 cents. Tomatoes were 39 cents a gallon. 39 cents a gallon. 39 cents a pound. And a bag of cheese puffs was 89 cents. 89 cents. A little bit more now.
You got to go to what the one that everybody's talking about. What that was. A gallon of gas. Come on now.
Gallon of gas was 91 cents average. What are we paying now? I'm paying a little over $6 right now.
I think I filled up for $4.70 a gallon today.
Lacey?
I haven't used my car in so long. I think the last time I filled up, it was still under $4.
Okay, you guys can all suck it right now.
Yeah, like I don't. I drive my car very rarely.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and hit in some world and national news here for 1982. United States in March placed an embargo on Libyan oil imports, alleging Libyan support for terrorist groups. I think that comes to fruition a little more later. A groundbreaking ceremony for Vietnam Veterans Memorial is held in Washington, D.C. March 29th, the 54th Academy Awards hosted by Johnny Carson are held at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion in Los Angeles. Hugh Hudson's Chariot of Fire wins Best Picture, and 3 other Academy Awards, which we were going to tease later on at the end of this series. April 6th, a blizzard unprecedented in the size for April dumps 1 to 2 feet of snow on the northeastern United States, closing schools and businesses, snarling traffic, and canceling several Major League Baseball games. I totally remember that happening on the news.
Man, you were in California. And that was just an average day for me in April at that age. It was Alaska time.
All right, guys, we have to get into 82 technology because this is where things really started to change. 82 is when technology started making the next step. And Time Machine usually had the man of the year or the person of the year. This time they said the machine of the year. And if you're looking on YouTube, you can see the cover there. It says the computer moves into the house. And so Time Magazine altered its annual tradition of naming Man of the Year, choosing instead to name the personal computer its Machine of the Year. Introducing the Time publisher John A. Myers wrote, several human candidates might have represented 82, but nothing symbolized the past year more richly or will be viewed more history or more significant than the machine and the computer. Speaking of computer, guys, we have the Franklin Ace 100 computer. Kyle, did you have this?
I did not. I had an actual Apple II.
Okay,
So.
yeah. This was created almost 5 years after the original Apple II. What about you, Lacey? Did you have, what was your first computer? Do you remember this?
Well, I didn't get my own personal computer until I was in college, but my family, my dad was very much IBM or that kind of. He was a businessman, and back then, if you had an Apple, you were like a creative, and that's not a thing that businessmen use because there was a definite divide at that time.
Franklin was able to undercut Apple's pricing even while offering some features not available in the original. Initially, Franklin won a court victory allowing them to continue cloning the machines, but in 1988, Apple won a copyright lawsuit against Franklin, forcing them to stop making Apple II clones. Bummer. Well, there are certain food and items that were introduced 40 years ago for the first time, and one of them is caffeine-free Pepsi. Yes, yum, yum.
Wait, Kevin, is that the original can? I'm thinking that isn't the original can.
Oh, go a little too far here. Well, probably not, but it's caffeine-free Pepsi. But if you look on the side there on the left, that's probably like a newer version of it because those cans went like straight up to the top, I think, before they had the lip thing. So yeah. We also had Diet Coke is now 40 years old. 40 years old. Yeah. There you go. Also, we have the compact CD player. It took a while. I think I didn't have mine until the 90s, but it was invented.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, and this one that we have a picture of is probably a newer one. We also had the disc film. Remember that?
Oh,
yes, disc film. Remember that?
Mine was maroon. I had that. But mine was maroon colored. They had like 6 options. And it was all those like really weird colors, like it was those 80s colors. You had the teal and the bright orange or the maroon. I got the maroon one.
Don't have a picture of this, but also the Commodore Max machine came out. Ciabatta bread was a thing. And Crystal Light. Christy Brinkley started making bank later on because of that. Am I remembering the right supermodel, Kyle?
I'm pretty sure. All I know is I believe in Crystal Light, so I believe in me.
Yes. I want to apologize to all women and other men that were forced to wear Drakkar Noir, which was put out for the first time 40 years ago. My best friend at the time, who I'm not going to name right now, wore this all the freaking time, and I didn't have the heart to say that it smelled like crap.
And it's funny because there were two different options. You had Drakkar Noir or you wore Canoe. Those were that was it. There was no other option. And you smelled like a really dirty hippie person, or you smelled like your uncle. There were 2 options, and that was it.
I'm convinced that the writers of Anchorman used the scent for Drakkar Noir for Sex Panther. I'm convinced of that. All right, guys, we're going to get into some toys here in a second. Let's go ahead and start with this one. This is Dukes of Hazzard Pinball, priced at $8.99. Score up to 1,100 points by knocking blocks into a tray behind Hazard Courthouse. Each Duke character is worth a different score. It includes 2 flippers and a steel ball. Who had this? Anyone? Lacey had it.
I had everything Dukes of Hazzard. Everything Dukes of Hazzard.
This was the height of Dukes of Hazzard in 82. So yeah.
My 5th birthday, I had everybody else had princess cakes. I had the General Lee on my cake. I was a 5-year-old girl in the South, and there was a straight up Confederate flag in the middle of my birthday cake. And
Nice.
and like you look back at pictures now, and you're just like, oh dear God, no. But it was because of the car. Like I just love the car.
Didn't have a picture of it, but we also have Disney Match'ems, price $7.99. Make Mickey's eyes light up when you make them the right match between numbers and letters. We also have the Fisher-Price Houseboat, manufacturing price at $13.94. But what I do have a picture of is the first boombox for kids, Fisher-Price tape recorder. $44.99, has a built-in microphone, large carrying handle, and a special activity tape is included. That is pretty cool. We also had, not pictured here, is the fuel-powered Stunt Flyer airplane, priced $300. Insert radio components inside fuselage, assemble muffler unit, attach propeller, and start engine. 12 to 15 minutes of powered flight. Gives you time to perform stunts like loops, figure eights, cubids, eight. This is an actual plane you would put gas into, right, Kyle?
Yeah, except the problem was most people who got this and paid the $300 for it were lucky if they got 2 minutes of flying time because they crashed it within that first 2 minutes.
What do I got next here? Oh, yeah. He-Man action figures by Mattel, price $9.99. We have He-Man and the Battle Cat from Master of the Universe, Kyle.
I have to do it. I'm sorry. I have the power. Okay.
Well played. Well played. All right, guys.
Major toy line here. Major toy line. Actually predated a lot of the bigger cartoon toy tie-ins things. This was kind of the one that kicked it off here.
Yeah, this was earlier than G.I. Joe, if I remember correctly. This came out and now is stronger than ever with TV series and new reissued classic toys. So yeah. All right, next we've got music news for 1982. Pop Goes Wild. March 82, March 3rd, the Mamas and the Papas. Now, let me just give you guys a heads up right now. There isn't some happy stuff that happens here. A lot of drugs are involved here. So here we go. The Mamas and Papas begin a reunion tour with a show in the New York club The Other End with original members John Phillips and Denny Doherty, along with Mackenzie Phillips and Spanky McFarlane, replacing Michelle Gilliam and Mama Cass, respectively. Frank Zappa's son Dweezil and daughter Moon Unit formed the band Fred Zeppelin. Comedian and blues brother John Belushi is found dead in an apartment drug overdose in the Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles. March 18th, Teddy Pendergrass is severely injured in a car accident in Philadelphia. Pendergrass injuries result in him being paralyzed from the chest down. And Ozzy Osbourne's lead guitarist Randy Rhoads is killed in a freak accident in Leesburg, Florida, when the plane in which he is riding buzzes Osbourne's tour bus and crashes into the house. The plane's pilot and female passenger are also killed. Rest in peace. March 22nd, Iron Maiden's release, Number of the Beast, is critically acclaimed yet controversial album, often hailed as Iron Maiden's greatest. This was Iron Maiden's first album to feature singer Bruce Dickinson in their first to hit #1 in the UK charts. David Crosby had a horrible couple of weeks here. March 28th in Los Angeles, he is arrested for possession of quaaludes and drug paraphernalia, driving under the influence of cocaine and carrying a concealed weapon. And then for the second week, a few weeks later in Dallas, police catch him preparing cocaine backstage before a show. And in April 15th of 1982, Billy Joel is seriously injured in a motorcycle accident in Long Island. Joel spends over a month in the hospital undergoing physical therapy for his hand. And not to be outdone, in a week later, Rod Stewart is mugged in Los Angeles. Stewart loses his $50,000 Porsche to a mugger, but is not hurt. The car is recovered several days later. And Joe Strummer vanishes, forcing the Clash to postpone their UK tour. Lacey, hard couple of weeks here, months for musicians.
That's a lot, man. That's just a lot, man.
The one that hit hard for me was, of course, Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist, Randy Rhoads. That was a huge loss, and he was so young at the time. Kyle, do you remember any of this?
There wasn't in my life.
I mean, come on. Who doesn't remember John Belushi, first and foremost? Around that would even at that age I was at 7, I knew who John Belushi was. the David Crosby stuff. I mean, really, the cocaine, crack is whack, kids. Cocaine, it doesn't do a body good. But and I remember I actually remember the Billy Joel accident as well.
Yeah, I totally forgotten about that. I had totally forgotten about that. Okay, guys, let's get into something a little fun with music. Let's go ahead and get into the 82 top 100 music song hits. And we do about 20 at a time. And right now we are at number 80 through 62. And I'm going to start with 80 with Here I Am by Air Supply. Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic by The Police. Crimson and Clover by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Yesterday's Song by Neil Diamond. Empty Garden, Hey Hey Johnny by Elton John. Gloria by Laura Branigan. Coming In and Out of Your Life by Barbra Streisand. Don't Stop Believing by Journey. Love Will Turn You Around by Kenny Rogers. It's Gonna Take a Miracle by Denise Williams. Take It Away by Paul McCartney. Oh No by the Commodores. Somebody's Baby by Jackson Browne. I Ran So Far Away by the Flock of Seagulls, which I just butchered. Did It in a Minute by Hall & Oates. You Can Do Magic by America. You Could Have Been There With Me by Sheena Easton. Our Lips Are Sealed by the Go-Go's. And at number 62, Blue Eyes, Elton John. Lacey Pants. Which one of these jumps out at you? Which one's your favorites?
For me, it's going to end up being either The Police or Journey. Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, of course. And then Don't Stop Believing. I mean, come on.
Great one. Good one. What about you, Kyle? Which are a couple of your favorites here?
I'm right there with Lacey because Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic. And I never stop believing because that was an amazing song. You got to give Gloria some love, though. Come on, Gloria. I mean, and the Go-Go's. I mean, they always kept those lips sealed. It was a pain in the butt to try to have conversations with them.
This is true. This is true. Don't Stop Believing, definitely with top ones there. Great song. I'm a huge fan of I Ran So Far Away by Flock of Seagulls. Freaking love that song. But I felt like Sheena Easton was addressing me personally when she said you could have been with me. And I just felt, darn it, almost was there. Almost was there. Oh, well.
You still feel that way, don't you?
I do. I have the biggest crush on Sheena Easton. Always have.
You didn't.
Gorgeous. All right, guys. What would you be watching in 82? Let's talk some 82 TV here, guys. Now, we have, obviously, the top 30 list, but we're doing a few at a time. And we're going to hit about 5 here. We're going to start with, at number 25, Laverne and Shirley. At 24, the ABC Monday Night Movie. 23, Archie Bunker's Place. 22, That's Incredible. And at number 21 was Hill Street Blues. Real quick, though, we had at 30, tied Real People, Dukes of Hazzard. 29, Little House, A New Beginning. 28, Happy Days. And 27, CBS Tuesday Night Movie with 26, ABC Sunday Night Movie. We discussed those already. But for 25 through 21, Lacey, let's start with you. What was your favorite of these? Laverne, ABC Movie, Archie Bunker's That's Incredible, or Hill Street Blues?
You know what? I didn't watch anything but the Dukes of Hazzard and the Fall Guy. I'm sorry. It just
that's all right.
None of those really hit home for me. Although That's Incredible is something that the family would kind of watch. With was it John Davidson, right? Was the host?
Yep. Right? And Skip, and then I'm forgetting the
head of brown hair. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep, definitely. Kyle, what about you? Which one of these you watched? What was your favorite?
Oh, there's a lot of That's Incredible. Not only you have John Davidson, you had the great Fran Tarkenton, and of course the wonderful Kathy Lee Crosby.
Thank you, Kyle. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Also got to throw out a little love to Hill Street Blues. My dad was a big fan of that show, and just remember one thing: be careful out there.
I've never seen a minute of Hill Street Blues. I don't know. I saw like TV ads for it, and I just wasn't feeling it. It felt like an old people's cop show, and I was not into that.
That's the one with Sipowicz, right?
No, that's NYPD Blue. I think Lacey.
Lacey is about 20 years ahead of her time.
I think Lacey's messing with us, and well played. I was watching Laverne and Shirley all the time, and I was watching That's Incredible, and whatever ABC Monday Night Movie was. I was not watching Archie Bunker's Place, but I think my dad was. I was kind of
so. But if you go by this, then the ABC Monday Night Movie had just a little bit better quality films than the CBS or the NBC Sunday Night Movie.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know. I can't remember that, but you might be right. Okay. 82 television shows that were debuting this year, and we had some debuting in March and April. Debuting March 6th, Chicago Story. March 3rd, The Kids of Degrassi Street on Showtime. March 12th, TJ Hooker. Yeah, baby. March 17th, Herbie the Matchmaker. March 19th, The Phoenix. March 23rd, Joni Loves Chachi and QED. No idea what that is. And March 25th, Cagney and Lacey. March 29th, Capital. April 5th, Report to Murphy. And April 14th, Teachers Only. Lacey, do you remember watching these brand new when they came on? Which one?
You know what? No, like I don't think any of them really hit home for me. This is a weird spot in my television history.
Gotcha.
I remember Cagney and Lacey, but that's because of my name. But it was a little bit too old for me again because I was only 8.
Right.
So I feel like I watched Cagney and Lacey when it got towards the end of it. 2 or 3 years later, but I don't think any of those are ones that I actually watched. Just because of my age.
Yeah. Okay. What about you, Kyle?
Come on. Heather Locklear on TJ Hooker.
Hold on.
Really?
Heather Locklear. Oh, yeah. Heather Locklear. Yeah. Right. Yeah. What's funny was
Captain Kirk as a cop. Come on.
Okay.
Now.
What's funny is I started watching it for Captain Kirk as a cop.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was watching it for Heather Locklear. A little later on, I was watching it for Heather Locklear. Or to see how many times TJ Hooker would like be on the hood of a car trying to stop a perp, one of those things. We did tune into Joni Loves Chachi and then tuned out really quick.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know. TV shows ending this year, guys. March 1st, In Search Of, but returned in 2002. March 6th, Spider-Man that came out in 81. March 22nd, Mr. Merlin. March 26th, Password Plus, but returned in 84. April 7th, Shannon. April 17th, The Lawrence Welk Show. This was sad for us. April 21st, WKRP in Cincinnati. And April 23rd, Blockbusters. Was anyone sad to see these go, Lacey?
I was really upset about Spider-Man because what was his name? Nicholas
Hammond.
Hammond, yeah, and he played Doug Simpson on the Brady Bunch. He was the guy who hit Marcia in the nose with the football.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He didn't hit her, but he's the one who canceled his date with her after she canceled a date with someone else.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's very important to me.
Kyle, what were you sad that was leaving?
Spider-Man was a heartbreaking one. Mr. Merlin, but and obviously WKRP in Cincinnati. And I have a question. Did the Lawrence Welk Show ever really end? Because I swear to this day, it's on TV somewhere. It's like a required thing. It must be on a TV channel.
It was a certain generation that was tuning into that, and I was not part of that generation. And,
yeah, exactly.
My parents weren't watching it either. So, yeah, I think it was our grandparents that were watching that. So, definitely. All right, guys. 82. What does being born in 82 say about you guys here? We have some 82 births. It says here that you are close to and trusting of the people around you. They find you loyal to a fault, but you must watch so people don't take advantage of that loyalty. You need to make an effort to show people how you really feel, or they may find you cold and distant. Guard against unwanted anxiety in your life. Okay. Anyway, let's get into who was born during March and April. We have Jessica Biel. She was born March 3rd. March 10th, Thomas Middleditch. March 11th, Thora Birch. March 20th, Nick Blood. Erica Luttrell, Canadian actress, English actor. March 21st, Santonio Fontana, American actor and singer. March 22nd, Constance Wu, Crazy Rich Asians. March 25th, Jenny Slate, actress and comedian. March 28th, German actor and musician, Flula Borg, who was awesome in Pitch Perfect 2, by the way. Just want to say. March 3rd, Chloe Zhao, Chinese-American director. We've heard of her recently, Kyle.
Well, I think you'd like to forget what she directed, but that's a whole other story.
What did she direct?
A little thing called The Eternals.
Oh, yeah. April 1st, Taron Killam, American actor and comedian, formerly of Saturday Night Live. April 3rd, Colby Smulders. We know her well. Canadian actress, of course, from The Avengers and, of course, How I Met Your Mother. Justin Cook, American voice actor, April 3rd, or 4th, excuse me. April 5th, Haley Atwell.
Can I stop and just savor this moment, please?
Yeah.
For a minute.
Yeah. Lacey, do you want to, or is this just us?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big year for Marvel, for the MCU. This is a big year for the MCU.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
You can include Jenny Slate because she's the one who told Chris Evans that he should do Captain America.
Yeah, that's right, because they were dating. That's right.
Yeah,
Well,
for like 10 years or something.
Nice. Jay Baruchel, Canadian actor and comedian, also the voice of How to Train Your Dragon. And Shyler Lee, American actress. She was in the spinoff show. She started the spinoff show of that 80s show from that 70s show, and also did the Not Another Teen Movie parody film, which also starred Chris Evans, by the way.
But before that, I think, well, I don't know if it was before or after, but she played Meredith Grey's sister, Lexi, on Grey's Anatomy for several years. She was a doctor. Kyler Lee. And now she just finished doing her arc on Supergirl. She was Supergirl's sister.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
For 6 or 7 seasons, yeah.
April 15th, Seth Rogen was born. Ali Wong, Vietnamese, Chinese American stand-up comedian, actress, and writer. If you haven't seen her movie on Netflix called Always Be My Maybe, please do. It's one of my favorites now. Lacey, you laughed. What'd you think? No? Yes?
That's a whole couch potato theater. We'll do that one.
Okay. All right. And April 30th, Kirsten Dunst. Bring it on. Guys, as we said, 82 celebrity deaths. We just had the one notable one, John Belushi, comedian and actor. And I do have a picture of Randy Rhoads up there. Rest in peace, Randy. But this was one of the Chicago Tribune. Comedian John Belushi is found dead. Autopsy is set to learn cause of actor's death. Of course, he was doing a bunch of cocaine and unfortunately had passed away in one of the bungalows there. And is a famous bungalow that still exists there at the Chateau of Marmont. A true comedic legend lost too soon. Can you imagine the comedic stuff and maybe even more dramatic stuff that he could have done? What movies he could have been a part of, like possibly Ghostbusters or some of these other movies. Can you imagine, Kyle?
That I could see him actually taking a lot of some of the John Candy roles from the 80s as well.
And everything his brother ever did.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I know for that.
What I mean, but like, I remember there being a thing about like people would openly just bash every movie that James Belushi did.
There's one movie though that James Belushi did that I don't think John could have done. Was one of my favorite films, Mr. Destiny.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Just gonna say that. All right, guys. We also have some celebrity film debuts. We always mention a few. We had Gina Davis make her debut in 82 for Tootsie. Shannon Doherty in Night Shift. She was young in that. Mm-hmm. Christine Ebersol also in Tootsie. Erica Eleniak in E.T., the one that showed her you-know-what in Under Siege.
Yeah, well, she was still getting it on in E.T. because that was the girl that Elliot kissed in E.T.
I totally forgot about that, but yeah, you're right. Wow. Miguel Ferrer, more known for RoboCop and other TV series. It was in Truckin' Buddy McCoy. And, Hugh Grant in Privileged. Oh, my God.
Well, wasn't that the guy known for Divine Brown?
Yeah. The fact that you know Divine Brown's name is amazing, Kyle. Well said.
The reason why that is because how do you go from Elizabeth Hurley to Divine Brown? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's one of those.
That was a big question. Of course, we got to give it to him, though, Lacey, for coming on the Tonight Show and saying I did a bad thing and apologizing. That's pretty brave.
Yeah.
All right. We have to get into our main meat of the show here, and that is the movies. We had some top grossing movies, of course, that we're going to be discussing, and I have a picture up here of a bunch of them. But only one of these movies that's listed and in the top 10 we're actually going to talk about in this particular one, and we'll wait till we get to that one there. But we did want to tease that there is some films that came out that made the cutting room floor, meaning that we're not going to discuss them. We're just going to briefly mention them. So we'll do that. And you may be wondering why the next film came out March 5th is not on the cutting room floor, because I kind of found it fascinating. This is Evil Under the Sun, a suspense thriller made about $4 million in the theater, trying to find how a millionaire wound up with a phony diamond brings... God, I'm going to mess up this name here. Hercule Poirot?
Hercule Poirot.
Thank you, Lacey.
Right.
I knew you would know that.
Poirot, yeah.
To an exclusive island resort frequented by the rich and famous. When a murder is committed, everyone has an alibi. And this is directed by Guy Hamilton, starring Peter Ustinov, James Mason, and Maggie Smith. Despite being cheaper, less starry than its two predecessors, Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile, both big hits, this movie was a huge money loser and put to an end of the Dame Agatha Christie franchise of producers John Barrymore and Richard Goodwin. Excuse me, I had to cough there. Who's seen this film? I have not. Lacey?
Oh, I just realized that I'm not centered. Hello. Yes, I have seen it. It's been a long time. I love Peter Ustinov. He's been in a million things. He's always going to be my favorite Blackbeard. But there have been so many people that have done Poirot, and I think that this is a little known kind of. This is the one that people kind of glaze over, but I think he did really well.
Kyle, did you ever see these? I think my parents watched this, but I didn't.
Yeah, I never saw this one. I actually watched the original Murder on the Orient, the 1970, I shouldn't say original, 1974 Murder on the Orient Express not too long ago when the remake came out, and because I was kind of curious of the differences between the two. The problem with any of these Agatha Christie films is just they have some pacing issues at times, and it really does affect the ability to watch sometimes, and you just kind of get dragged out. But I mean, Peter Ustinov, phenomenal actor, and I mean, so has a career that's quite well known, and
yeah,
you mix Agatha Christie and him, and it's an interesting combination. So it might be something I would go back and try to check out somewhere down the line.
One of my favorite trivia things about this, I had to mention, and it's very, very important. Both Peter Ustinov and Diana Rigg, who are in this film, also appeared in The Great Muppet Caper,
which is a much superior film.
Which is, I think, my favorite Muppet film, next to the Christmas movie. So I love The Muppet Caper. Every time that big fish-eyed Muppet says, "I've got the paper towels," I'm on the floor. Okay, guys, I had to include this film because I just thought it was weird, and I actually have it playing on my screen in the background. I think it's streaming on Amazon, but with commercials, or an Amazon something, I can't remember, but I asked for it on my Apple TV and it popped up, and it's over 2 hours and 30 something minutes. It's long. And it's called, oops, sorry, wrong one here. It's called Fitzcarraldo, a film by Werner Herzog. The story behind Brian Sweeney's Fitzcarraldo is about an obsessed opera lover who wants to build an opera in the jungle. To accomplish this, he first has to make a fortune in the rubber business, and his cunning plan involves hauling an enormous riverboat across a small mountain with aid from the local Indians. Starring Klaus Kinski, Claudia Cardinale, and Jose Ligüe. Klaus Kinski was a major source of tension on the set. He fought violently with the crew and raged over trivial matters. The natives were upset about his behavior. Werner Herzog has claimed that one of his chieftains offered in seriousness to murder Kinski for Herzog. After a Peruvian logger was bitten by a deadly snake, he immediately cut off his own foot with a chainsaw to prevent the spread of the venom. Werner Herzog commented, "It was a good decision. He lived." And the real 365-ton steamship was moved over a mountain with a bulldozer. And according to Werner Herzog, a Catholic priest urged him to include prostitutes as part of the movie's production crew, or the men would go crazy in the jungle. Lacey, have you heard of this film?
I have not heard of it, but Herzog has never been kind of on the top of my list, and you add Kinski to that, and I'm out. I'm just separately, they both seem to do a lot of like angry and or really depressing movies, and that's
True.
just not my bag. Like putting them in the same movie together, it's like anger and depression. No, thank you, I'm good.
Klaus Kinski creeps me out a little bit because of the expressions, but he's got low hanging large earlobes, Kyle. That's kind of freaky. Have you seen this film?
I have not seen this film, nor will desire to see this film. And Kevin, I'm going to be honest with you. If you were still a single man and didn't have a wife who would come kill me if you actually did this, I really do think you just watched this because you were planning to get your haircut in the Klaus Kinski hairstyle.
No. I was just fascinated that this was filmed on location in Peru, and this guy wanted to have opera, and he wanted to move this riverboat over a mountain. Who does that? They did, apparently, and I just found that fascinating, so we had to do it. All right, let's hit the next film here, guys. Richard Pryor, Live on the Sunset Strip. Director Joe Layton. Richard Pryor played to a capacity crowd over 2,000 people who attended the movie's 2 concerts, which were used for shooting this concert film. The concert movie was filmed live at the Hollywood Palladium over 2 consecutive screenings in 1981. Both performances were sold out within hours within box office opening. It is revealed Richard Pryor Omit the Logic came out in 2013 that Pryor completely messed up his performance during the first filming of the show. Pryor lost his train of thought and forgot most of his material. He apologized to the audience and ended the show early, leaving the audience angry. Pryor pulled himself together and gave a much better performance the next night. Most of the footage of the film is from the second performance. And I was reading this trivia before I watched the movie, and I actually have a physical media copy of it. And this was after, of course, he burned himself to death regarding his little drug incident. And he actually talks about it in this film. And there's some funny moments, but I'll be honest with you, I kind of was put off by it. I didn't find it as funny as people did in the audience. Maybe you get more into it while you're there. But he was getting kind of personal about it and talking about that accident, which I think a lot of people appreciated. And it's not really an accident when he talks about it on stage. He actually did it because he was high, and I think he felt that in a moment he was actually trying to commit suicide here. But because of the fire and what was doing it to him, he wanted to end it. He didn't want to die burning alive. That was a message I got out of that. But it had its moments. But I've seen his earlier stuff, which I found a lot more funny.
Yeah. This is a very interesting film for one of the reasons you said, because this is such an interesting time in Richard Pryor's career. He's really dealing with a lot of crap at this point in his career, with the fire, with the event that happened. And this was something too, where you didn't have a lot of, they would make these comedy films, but they didn't necessarily take them to the theaters that often. So this was a pretty big deal. And this is actually why Eddie Murphy gets inspired later to do Delirious and Raw.
Yeah.
And so because of his love for Richard Pryor. But this is the thing about this, Kevin, and you're right. It's not the most of Richard Pryor at his funniest, but if you are a Richard Pryor fan, this is a real insight into the man himself and how he was thinking, especially at this time in his life, which is just a very messed up time for him.
Yep. Lacey?
Okay, there's 2 types of comedians. There are the ones who are still funny after they find sobriety, and then there are ones who are not. And not that, I don't know, I just don't think he just, between this and then Here and Now, and there was one in between, and he got very, it almost felt like he was doing a TED Talk.
Right. By the time you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right. It felt like, and he was talking. And when
you're going through something like that, okay, great. Like more power to him. Like, let's keep him alive. Let's keep him from like setting himself on fire again. That's great. But I don't think that I feel like he was using it as therapy instead of like actually, being a comedian. And his other acting roles benefited from his sobriety, but I don't think his stand-up did.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's an excellent point.
I think that's fair, because he did some great movies after this, including anytime he teamed up with Gene Wilder, like in Stir Crazy.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Next one, I just couldn't bring myself to watch, but I found it fascinating, and that is Parasite. Demi Moore in her first starring role, sci-fi horror film. In a post-apocalyptic USA, a doctor scientist infected with a new strain of parasite ends up in a small desert town trying to find a cure. Directed by Charles Bland, starring Robert Glaudini, Demi Moore, and Luca Bercovici. The parasites were hand puppets made out of foam rubber, originally shown in 3D. But here's the interesting part. This came out in 82, but the film takes place in 1992, which is interesting. And in October 2019, Demi Moore stated in the late show with James Corden, that this was the worst movie she'd ever been in. I wasn't about to watch this to confer on that. Lacey, I know you're not a horror fan. You probably didn't see this.
I'm not a horror fan, but just to see what people in 1982 thought 1992 was going to be like might be, because I'm not a horror fan.
Right.
But I'm interested to see like the background and the clothing and everything else. I want to see what they thought 10 years later was going to be.
That's actually, now you got me interested.
Yeah, like I want to see that now. At least I want to watch it with the volume off and just like kind of scan through and see the background and the car. I'll have to see if Tubi's showing it or something. But right. Kyle, when this movie was released on DVD, of course, Demi Moore became a big star, and her picture is the only one that's on it.
And probably just better off forgotten that way as well. So,
yep. All right, guys. The next film I actually found on DVD at a thrift store, and that is The Atomic Cafe. Disturbing collection of 1940s and 50s United States government-issued propaganda films designed to reassure Americans that the atomic bomb was not a threat to their safety. Wrong. 3 directors, Jane Loder, Kevin Rafferty, and Pierce Rafferty. The documentary took 5 years to make. Work on the movie began in 1977. The film was first released in 1982. The documentary was originally conceived to be a film about propaganda, but the filmmakers then narrowed their scope to make the movie about the birth of the atomic age. The segment Duck and Cover showed how school children were reassured by Bert the Turtle that they would survive a nuclear bomb by simply forming a huddle around the wall of the schoolhouse. The Atomic Cafe had been attributed to raising public consciousness of the short film Duck and Cover and introduced it to a whole new generation. This movie was more fascinating than funny, to be honest with you guys, because I remember seeing a few of these things on newsreels, and it was a joke because it wasn't more like you would be saved ducking and rolling. It was depending on where the bomb was, and were you in the radius of being eviscerated or becoming the RoboCop guy at the end, or just becoming like, something like that. Lacey, have you seen this film?
I have not. I mean, I'm sure I've probably seen snippets from it if it's a collection of things that were actually shown, but I don't think I've ever sat down and watched all of the propaganda from the atomic age.
Yeah. What about you, Kyle?
I actually did see this in high school of all things. We watched this for a class I was in, and yeah, it's fascinating, the mindset and how they approached all of this, and just we're not telling you what's really going on. We're going to give you this story just to make you feel like you actually have a legitimate chance of survival when we know better.
Right, right.
It's like, but I will say this too, that the spinoff of this movie, Atomic Blonde, much better film.
Yeah, I'll go with that, Kyle. All right, guys. The next film we have is a black comedy made about almost $20 million in the theater, and it is called Death Trap, starring Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve, and Diane Cannon. A Broadway playwright puts murder in his plan to take credit for the student's play. And when this movie was made and released, Christopher Reeve was at the peak of his fame. I have a physical copy of it as well, because of playing Superman, and was about to appear in Superman 3. Reeve accepted the role of Clifford Anderson because it had nothing to do with either Clark Kent or Superman. And he wished to avoid being typecast by a superhero persona. During the making of this movie, he said, "I had a lot of fun training as an actor, and I wanted to use it." And director Sidney Lumet once commented on the real stage play scene seen in this movie. "We use the original set of Death Trap as our set for Sidney Bruhl's flop play. The Music Box Theater is dark on Mondays." And so we shot there on Monday along with 600 dress extras as first nighters. Thus, the opening scene in the movie of the play within a play, which takes place is in the play is also which is the movie's based. It's not clear if at least it's a first. I find that trivia kind of confusing there. But guys, I really wanted to like this film because I like it. It's hit or miss for me when they have plays go directly to a film and they kind of shoot it like it's a play, meaning like one set, maybe two sets, and everything takes place and it gets kind of claustrophobic, which this film does, because it pretty much takes place in one house, and then in the beginning and the end, it takes place on the stage. And there was, I get why there's a lot of dialogue in this film because it's directly adapted from the play, but I think there's right ways to do it and there's wrong ways to do it. And personally, I felt this is the wrong way to do it. I was really bored. It was way too much talking. I had to fast forward through a bunch of it to see where it was going to go, even though I knew where it was going to go because I had seen part of it before. I think I had looked up on it about what happens and everything. But Lacee, you disagree with me. You like this film, and I want to give you the shout out on this and tell us why.
I didn't see it coming. It's one of those things, and of course I obviously didn't see this when I was 8. But
talk about what you didn't see coming. We can be spoiler on this.
Well, okay. I didn't see the return from the dead happening. There was a lot of basically the last 20 minutes of the film was completely like, oh wait, what now? Okay, this is new. I mean, I was going into it thinking that it was going to be what it was on the back of the, on the back of the label. It obviously doesn't spoil on the back of the label doesn't spoil the plot. So it almost has that Raggedy Man feeling to it, where you watch this whole movie, and we talked about this, I think, in part 4 of last year. But it was like you watch this whole movie, and like the last 10 minutes is like, wait, did we just switch genres? What just happened?
Cool. Okay, let me ask you this real quick, because in the comments you mentioned the play Noises Off, which I like. Yes. And that was done pretty much direct, from play to screen. But sure. I think the problem I had with this movie is there wasn't a big enough diverse cast playing off each other. It was just basically a 3-person play to a certain extent. Throw in a fourth with the neighbor lady, I guess. And that was one of the problems I had with it. So it's very, this is Ira Levin wrote the play, right? But it's kind of like when you go see a Pinter play, you get 3 people on stage, they walk around, there's nothing except for like a chair and maybe, a glass of water on a ledge. Right. They're very minimalist. And so there's a mindset when you go into those types of plays. And I had grown up, my parents always took me, my grandparents, we always went down to the Vox Theater on Sundays. We'd go see all these different plays and stuff. So sitting quietly for 3 hours of a play was not unheard of for me. So watching something that is a slow burn is not something I'm opposed to. The one thing I really liked about this, though, Kyle, is I think it's got one of the best movie posters or DVD covers. I love how they're kind of in this Rubik's Cube type of thing. Great cover art for this. Did you ever see this film?
I've never seen it, but what's interesting about this, because of Christopher Reeve being in it, this is the fascinating aspect of Christopher Reeve, because this is when he was taking every opportunity to find something that was so against him playing Superman, because he wanted to be be known as such a more diverse actor and not get typecast as Superman. And so he was just taking things that were just so wildly different. And yeah, it makes this period of his career when Superman, because I believe he did this after Superman 2, but before Superman 3 came out. Yeah. So it's a very interesting time, and if you look at Christopher Reeve's career during this time frame, it's really fascinating the type of movies he bounces around and is doing.
I do give the cast credit here, because Michael Caine playing off of anyone is great to watch, and Michael Caine against Diane Cannon, yeah, who was great, by the way, and looked gorgeous. But between him and Christopher Reeve, and I didn't see Superman and Christopher Reeve, which was great, and so he's a great actor, and so I think we knew later, seeing his other films as well, that he is a good actor. He's not just Superman, although we will always remember him as the best Superman and one of the best superheroes of all time. So, Lacey, you had something else you want to mention there?
Yeah, I was just loving his Superman.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. The next movie we need to talk about was probably the movie that really, really launched. Kyle?
Well, no, I just
Did you want to say something about Death Trap before we move on?
No. Go this. I want this next film. I have a story I want to give everybody.
Okay. The next film launched a clone of other films. Probably gave Skinamax its nickname and Cinemax a reason to exist, and that is Porky's. Porky's made $109 million in 1982 and is the movie that did make it into the top 10 that I teased earlier here. Keep an eye out for the funniest movie about growing up ever made. Porky's, you'll be glad you came. 1954, a group of Florida high school guys try to help their buddy lose his virginity, which leads them to seek revenge on a sleazy nightclub owner and his redneck sheriff brother for harassing them. Directed by Bob Clark, stars Dan Monahan, Mark Harrier, and Wyatt Knight. Actor-director Bob Clark gathered material for the movie over a 15-year period. The story is a composite of incidents collecting from the males of his generation, along with some of his own personal memories from growing up in high school. Bob Clark stated in the 2006 DVD commentary that he used his real-life high school and college experience for the basis of various characters and compares him closest to Pee-wee, Billy, and Tommy the Brains. Other characters were based on real-life friends or people that went to school and college with. This was the highest-grossing movie from Canada for 24 years. As of 2010, it was now the third highest, having been beaten by Bon Cop, Bad Cop in 2006 and Resident Evil Afterlife in 2010. Kyle, what would you like to share?
I have two very quick stories about how Porky's is infamous in my family.
Uh-oh.
The first one involves my
hold on. Did your mom take you to see this in the theater?
No. Okay. We'll go there first then for you, Kevin. No, I did not see this movie in the theater. Even my parents, who were let me watch a lot of things I shouldn't have watched well before my time. No, I watched this movie with my grandmother because this is was one of her all-time favorite films.
I love your grandmother already.
But the other story with Porky's is, let's rewind back to our days of VHS rental. My half sister happened to ring up a $300 late charge on a Porky rental. She rented it funny. While I was on vacation with my parents, and she stayed behind because she had some school stuff, and she rented it and never returned it. And we got a phone call 6 months later. Shannon owes a $300 late fee to Neighborhood Video for Porky's. But
please tell me that she became legend of that video store because of that. And did you guys pay it?
She paid it. My dad made her pay it. But of course, the most important lesson of Porky's of all is the fact that we learned what happens when you get Kim Cattrall into the boys' locker room.
Lacey, have you seen Porky's?
I have seen Porky's. I think there's like 3 of them now. Yeah, I've seen all the Porky's. Mm-hmm. I mean, not really my style, but funny for like a one-shot watch. No pun intended. I think the coolest thing about this movie is that this is the movie where Alex Karras and Susan Clark met, and they married in real life, and they then became Webster's George and Ma'am. Yep,
there you go.
Nice.
Kevin, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
What does the soap taste like?
Okay.
I have this on physical media, by the way, guys. I don't know if you're surprised by that, but I have Porky's 1 and 2 double feature on the same DVD, and not embarrassed by that at all.
This is where I learned the term tallywhacker.
Yeah. What's that,
Kevin?
That's where I learned the term tallywhacker.
Yes, Kyle.
Kevin, I do have one quick question for you. Was American Pie the next movie in this genre that really truly came close to capturing the spirit of the original Porky's?
To a certain degree, yes. When it came to friends trying to have sex or get a goal, and while they're trying to lose their virginity, that was basically our Porky's. Well, not our, but that generation's Porky's, but definitely. And they got the crude humor right. They got the nudity, the foul language. So yeah, Lacey, do you have another one a contender you want to throw in there?
What about Hard Bodies? And also,
Hard Body,
movie. Like those were really
okay. When did Hard Bodies come out? It came out later, right?
So it might have been 88, maybe.
Yeah, I would say sooner earlier than that. But Hard Bodies was kind of a clone of Porky's, to be honest with you. I think, Hard Bodies is one of those that stands out and had the test of time like Porky's did. Hard Bodies. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
Somebody might own a Blu-ray version that has a special slipcase that looks like a VHS on it. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I have all of these on DVD or Blu-ray. Okay. Yeah. There's definitely
I would disagree that it is a contender though. It's close because I think it's more of a clone personally. Just my 2 cents. So if anyone else has any ideas, please hit us up. Let us know. The next film, I think I saw portions of it, but I'm just going to say I haven't really seen it all the way through. And I was pleasantly surprised by it. And that is Victor Victoria. Guys, as I mentioned on Facebook when I was talking about this, I'll see anything. I like anything pretty much that has Julie Andrews in it. Being directed by her husband, of course, Mr. Blake Edwards. And I've got my own physical copy of it as well, which I'm going to keep. Absolutely adored this film. Made about $22 million, which isn't bad for this time. A struggling female soprano during 1930s Paris, working to play. She's playing a male-female impersonator, but it complicates her personal life. Of course, directed, as I mentioned, by Blake Edwards, written by him as well, based on concept by Hans Holberg, and 1933 script from a similar film, same name actually, by Reinhold Schüssel. Stars Julie Andrews, James Garner, and Robert Preston, who I absolutely adored in this. Robert Preston is great. My first time I remember seeing Robert Preston, as you know, probably Kyle, is The Last Starfighter. So I'm having to go back and watch his earlier stuff. And I thought Preston was great. He's gay in this, which makes it even great. But I was actually pleasantly surprised by James Garner in this film, because when you see him playing this heterosexual guy, hearing that there's this guy playing a woman, and you see him like watching him on stage, and he's attracted to her, and he's kind of questioning his sexuality at the time, which I thought was great. And then he goes to kind of figure it out, and then he finds out. Very charming scenes between the two. Lacey, I know you love this film. Please let us know why.
I loved everything about this movie. Like from the beginning, where she literally has a cockroach that she's going to put in her salad so they can get free food, all the way to the open door, closed door, open door, closed door, hiding in the closet under the bed. All the kind of the, I don't know, almost vaudevillian feel to the hijinks that go on. And again, Alex Karras.
Great musical numbers too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Alex Karras. We have a family connection. My dad actually grew up in London, or outside of London, and apparently Julie Andrews lived in the house behind theirs. And so she would sing in the backyard.
You're talking about the guy that became Webster's dad, right? The one that played the bodyguard to James Garner, and he found
Alex
out that
Karras.
Yeah,
that's Alex Karras. No, my dad lived behind Julie Andrews.
Oh, Julie Andrews. Got you. My bad. Sorry, misunderstood. That's really cool. Did he ever stalk her like I would have?
Yeah, he was like between the ages of 5 and 10. This was not this was like, in the mid 50s or something. So
I just have to mention real quick. I was telling my dad I was watching this because I showed it the DVD, and because we used to watch, every I usually came around, I think during the holidays. We used to watch Sound of Music, and my dad went, "Yeah, she's got a nice rack." There's my dad for you. There you go, Kyle. Seen Victor Victoria?
It has been a long time since I've seen Victor Victoria, but like you said, Kevin, you can never go wrong with Julie Andrews here. I got to ask you guys a question though, because we're talking about Julie Andrews, and I seem to remember there was on one of the late night talk shows, one of them had a guest on talking about having a crush on Julie Andrews, and they surprised that particular person with Julie Andrews, and I can't remember who it was, and it's driving me bonkers. You guys, either of you recall this?
I think that, hold on. I think that was on, what's his name show? The British guy. What's his name?
Graham Norton.
Yes, I think it was a Graham Norton thing.
Yeah, it was Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill.
Thank you.
Right.
Jonah Hill. Thank you, Lacee.
And it turned out, like, if you watch the episode, it's absolutely adorable because he is friends with the person who did the ghostwriting for Blake Edwards' like second autobiography or something. And so they ended up sort of talking to each other, at which point Graham Norton was just like, no, you go ahead. Like, y'all go. And all of a sudden they were kind of like, oh, okay. And then they both found out that Jonah Hill had not seen, was it 10? What was the movie where she showed her?
Was that SOB?
SOB, yeah. That we did last year.
Yeah.
And so it was just, it's a very, you Google it. It's really funny.
Sorry, I got lost in a moment there, but yeah, thank you, Lacee. Okay, guys, the next film I had to mention, I just thought it was weird. I haven't seen it. I don't know, but because someone calls it a great movies list, I have to bring this up. And this is Mephisto.
Is that why we haven't seen him in the MCU yet?
Yeah. Different Mephisto. This was, I'm not showing a theatrical release here in the States, but because I think it's I want to say it's a German film. I think in the early 1930s, Germany, a passionate stage actor finds himself before a dilemma: renounce his political stance and comply with the Reich's doctrine, or face oblivion. But Faustian bargains never end well. What is the price of success? Stars Klaus Maria Brandherr. I don't know. Stefan Stabo is the director. I do want to mention, though, never once is the name Hitler mentioned or Hitler's image shown throughout the film. Similarly, actor Ralph Hope's character, obviously portraying Hermann Goering, is never referred to by name. Only his title Marshal. Goering was Reich Marshal's the Reich Marshal, a title specifically made for him as he was Hitler's next in command during the Third Reich, nor is his traditional raised arm Nazi salute ever done in the movie. Based on the novel Mephisto by Klaus Mann, not Klaus Meine, the singer of the Scorpions, which obviously portrays his former brother-in-law Gustav Gudensons. Therefore, it was banned in Germany until 2000. The film is included, check this out, the film is included in Roger Ebert's great movie list. Anyone see this or want to see it, Lacee?
As a general rule, if there's a giant swastika on the cover, I'm not going to watch that film. I don't care if I don't want to see it. Like, I don't care if it's pro or con. I don't, yep. That's just not, it's not content that I can't watch Holocaust and I can't watch slavery. I can't, like, those things I can't physically handle that kind of stuff. Kyle,
heard of it or seen it?
That would be a negatory either way.
All right. Moving along. Okay, I don't know. I kind of want to see this movie. Haven't seen it, though. Beach Girls. Made $20 million. Comedy, theatrical. 3 cute teenage girls head to a rich uncle's house for the summer to party. Directed by Bud Townsend, starring Deborah Blee, Val Klein, and Jenna Coe. Film debut of Deborah Blee and Corin Burrs debut. Don't know who any of these people are. It feels like it's somewhere in Southern California. Look who just invaded Uncle Carl's beach house. Feels like a movie might be on Skinamax. Kyle, I assume you saw this?
I have not seen this film, actually. I don't know who these people are either, but yeah, this has Skinamax feel all over.
It does. Lacee?
Do you remember the show Riptide? It came on Simon and Simon. Remember there was like the nerdy guy that would come on every once in a while? This is that, like, in my head, this is like a double episode of Simon and Simon or Riptide, where
Riptide, that's so funny.
Because that guy looks, I mean, he's small on the screen, but he looks like he could be that guy.
He does.
In my head, this is like a side quest to that show. This is like the backdoor pilot where he like stumbles into like these 3 women who he's like, oh, what do I do? That's what that reminds me of. I have not seen this.
Why are you selling me on this movie now? Okay. All right. Yeah. Next is a film I have not seen. I'm Neil Simon is hit or miss for me, but I'm kind of curious about this film now, and I want to see what you guys think. And that is Neil Simon's I Ought to Be in Pictures. Grandmother has nothing to say when Libby tells her that she's off to LA to look up Dad, a Hollywood screenwriter. Grandmother has been in New York Cemetery for 6 years, and Dad has been out of Libby's life for 6 to 19 of her years. Libby arrives in LA on a Tuesday and phones Dad the one night that Stephanie, who does Jane Fonda's hair, stays over. Stephanie is there the next morning when Libby decides she needs to tell her story face to face. And on the poster says Libby Tucker hitchhiked from Brooklyn to take Hollywood by storm and her father by surprise. Directed by Herbert Ross, of course, written by Neil Simon, stars Walter Matthau, young Anne Margaret, and Diana Manoff. In this picture, Diana reprises her Tony Award-winning role for Best Feature Actress as Libby Tucker from the Broadway play I Ought to Be in Pictures. Manoff also won the 1980 Theater World Award for that stage role. This film was made and released about 2 years after its source play by Neil Simon, which first performed in 1980. The play I Ought to Be in Pictures originally opened up in Broadway at the Eugene O'Neill Theater in 1980 and completed its run on January 11th, 1981, after 324 performances. Fifth appearance by Walter Matthau in a screen. Matthau. You're right. Sorry, guys. Walter Matthau in a screen in a Neil Simon play. The previous ones were The Odd Couple, Plaza Suite, The Sunshine Boys, California Suite. The film was Matthew's penultimate Simon film, The Odd Couple 2 in 1988, being his last. Have you seen this, Lacey?
Yes.
Anne, thoughts?
I loved it. It's one of those ones where you can really peg the time frame. It does not necessarily hold up well. There's a lot of content that you would definitely not see these days. Nothing specific. It's just kind of everything. You know what I mean? It's one of those that kind of just doesn't hold up. But at the time, and of course, everything that Matthau did during that period led to him becoming one of the grumpy old men, right? I mean,
yeah,
it's just that
from The Odd Couple, basically.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Walter Matthau. Yeah, I've always, even though I just butchered his name, I've always liked stuff that I've seen him in. Kyle, have you seen this film?
I have not seen this film, but the cast alone fascinates me with Walter Matthau, always tied in with Neil Simon, and of course the absolutely stunning Anne Margaret. So this is something I would definitely revisit.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break from our time warp here. Let's see if we can go ahead and we'll be back to let you know what other great podcasts are after you hear about the other great podcast on the Fandom Podcast Network. We'll be right back, guys. Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. We'd like to continue to feed your ears by inviting you to listen to these other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. It starts with our flagship show, Culture Clash, discussing the latest in entertainment pop culture. Bloody Kings, Immortals Take Notice, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theaters, where we celebrate our favorite movies. Time Warp, the Fandom Flashback podcast discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie and TV pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Union Federation, our Star Trek and Orville show. Hair Metal, the 80s and early 90s rock metal podcast. Type 40, our show covering the time-traveling Doctor Who universe with host Dan Hadley. Lethal Mullet, an 80s and 90s action film podcast with host Adam P. O'Brien. Also check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast with hosts Scott, Derek, and Nathan. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast, a deep dive into the final frontier with host Mark Newbold and Adam P. O'Brien. And check out our newest shows, The Fandom Show, our monthly Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube exclusive show about the month's hottest topics in fandom, and the FPN True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the related Marvel television and streaming MCU universe, including the connections to the original Marvel comics. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on several platforms. Please subscribe to the Fandom Podcast Network YouTube channel to receive notifications of new podcast episodes and live events. You can enjoy all of the Fandom Podcast Network audio podcasts on our master feed at fpnet.podbean.com. The Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast and iTunes. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You can also find the Fandom Podcast Network on Instagram at Fandom Podcast Network and on Twitter at FanPod Network. Thank you for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom. Love that, Kyle. Love that sound. All right, guys, welcome back to Time Warp 1982, Part 2. We're talking about the movies and pop culture 40 years later, and we're discussing the months of March and April. The next film we are discussing is Meow Cat People. They are something more than lovers who are about to become something less than human. A young woman's sexual awakening brings horror when she discovers her urges transform her into a monstrous black leopard. Directed by Paul Schrader, starring Natasha Kinski, Malcolm McDowell, and John Hurd. Director Paul Schrader and lead actress Natasha Kinski had an affair during the production of this movie. Schrader fell in love and planned to propose marriage to Kinski at a wrap party, but she didn't show up and cut off all communication with him. After 3 months, Schrader finally tracked Kinski down in Paris, where she bluntly told him, quote, "Paul, I always have sex with my directors, and with you, it was difficult." Ouch! Ouch! By his own admission, director Paul Schrader says that one day he got so stoned on set he refused to come out of his trailer. The whole day's filming was lost. I wonder if those two trivias are connected. Apparently, director Paul Schrader regretted using the Cat People title after negative reaction to this movie occurred. People were comparing it to the original Cat People in 1942. The scene of Alice, Annette O'Toole, being stalked at the swimming pool is a direct homage and reworking from the equivalent scene in the original Cat People 1942. The scene in the main common element of the two films. Apart from Cat People, they are completely different stories. Now, I had to pick this up on social media as well, or on physical media. I have it on DVD. I'd never seen this before. I've always been kind of curious about it. Friends of mine were saying, dude, you got to see it because you know why. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I got to say, though, I actually found myself liking this film. It was interesting, not just because of the obvious, some people are naked in this, but I thought the idea of the history behind these people and the way that it was portrayed and how kind of creepy it was, but interesting still. Was it Malcolm McDowell's performance? I thought was really good, but I really like John Hurd's character because he ends up falling for Natasha Kinski's character, but he's the guy that works with the zoo. There's a couple of tough scenes that you're wondering, like, did they really like knock that big cat out with some drugs so they can pull that scene, or was it a fake cat? So if you're an animal lover, there's a couple little scenes there, so just trigger warning. But overall, I did like it, and I also thought the music was really cool. Kyle, have you seen this film?
It has been a very, very long time since I've seen this film, but it just applies to a particular Hollywood belief I have. Never mess with an actress named Natasha because they transform into something that's going to mess you up.
This is very, very true. Yeah. Like I said, the mythology was kind of cool, though. I kind of liked the story behind it. Lacey, have you seen this film?
I have not. I mean, like I said, I'm not really a horror movie person. I do think that it's interesting that this is kind of the one movie that Schrader has done that isn't like super dramatic.
Right.
Like, you've got Autofocus and Patty Hearst and Light of Day and American Gigolo and like so many, and that's just movies he's directed. I mean, didn't he write Taxi Driver and so many Mosquito Coast.
Yes, his writing credits are more impressive than his directing credits. Raging Bull, American Gigolo,
there you go.
Taxi Driver, and his Last Temptation of Christ.
And
he's still doing it. He has two projects that are in post production right now. So yeah.
So this kind of feels like hey, y'all want to get together, hang out, and film some some weird shit over the weekend. Like it feels like that's the movie. No,
Yeah.
like I haven't seen it. I don't have an opinion on it, but just from the title and the content, it just seems like maybe those drug-addled situations were problematic from the screenwriting all the way through.
Yep. Yeah, no, he's, like I said, if you look at his writing, he's definitely more accomplished that way. But the next film I recently saw for the first time, and there's a reason for it. And the next film is, I can't believe I've missed this movie, but Diner came out in 1982. Comedy, made about $13 million. A group of college-age buddies struggle with their imminent passage into adulthood in 1959 Baltimore, directed by Barry Levinson, starring Steve Guttenberg, Mickey Rourke, Kevin Bacon, Daniel Stern, Ellen Barkin, Timothy Daly. I did mention that, right? Yeah, Timothy Daly. All the scenes in the diner were filmed last, after the cast got to know each other. The dialogue in those scenes is a combination of scripted and improv. Barry Levinson claims that the infamous football quiz that Eddie forces his fiancée to pass is based on something that one of his male cousins did in real life. The greatest source of competition among the actors came about when they were called on to improvise a skill in which they had different abilities. Kevin Bacon, by his own admission, was the least adept at it. Tim Daly said it hardest to top Paul Reiser's improv dexterity because he's the sharpest and fastest guy alive. Now, there's a reason why I had to get around to finally watching this movie. When Aaron and I finally got married in Vegas, one of the fun things that we wanted to do at the wedding chapel was to get pictures taken in certain poses of our famous movies. One of the ones that we did actually back at the hotel, we wish we would have done it at the chapel, was we decided to do Diner because one of our friends, one of Aaron's longest friends, Todd, he was there with his girlfriend. He loves this film. And I was like, okay, well, I'll bring the DVD and I'll get a picture of it and we'll do a cool picture of it. And, well, I haven't actually released that yet, but I will later. But this film was great. And I got to tell you, man, Mickey Rourke, how handsome was he at this time, man? Oh, man, what went wrong? But I got to tell you, my favorite scene in the movie, it was kind of funny and sad at the same time. Daniel Stern with Ellen Barkin, and Daniel Stern getting really upset about, what did I tell you about my music collection? What did I tell you? He's getting very anal about how Ellen Barkin messed up putting his albums in the wrong order and stuff like that, which I probably could understand, because if you see the movies in my hand and the movies behind me, I don't know if I'll be that much of an asshole about it, but I did sympathize with it. I thought it was kind of funny. Lacey, I know you love this film. Please tell me why.
Well, I'm right there with you. That scene with Ellen Barkin and Daniel Stern as Shreevy, like that, I don't think I've ever felt so seen. It was just because that's how I am with my my physical media collection. I am alphabetized beginning to end, and sequels have to be in order, and if it's something like the MC, whatever, I have all my it's a thing, right? So everything he said, every word he said, if you transcribe that to film, that is me. So gotcha. But I agree. Mickey Rourke, beautiful man. Crazy Kevin Bacon with his stuff. The popcorn thing was unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, it's got,
that is a classic scene that was recreated in life many times.
Yes, and now it's you can prosecute someone for doing that.
This is true. Back then, you didn't think about it. You just left. You just left your date, unless you were cool as Mickey Rourke and you chased down your date into the lobby and said, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'm just, you make me crazy, and you're beautiful, and I thought it would be funny. I'm really sorry, but I'd really like to take you out." Am I selling anyone on this, Lacey?
No, he literally victim blamed her into feeling bad that he had a boner.
Yes.
That is not. No. I mean, funny at the time, not funny now.
Kyle, have you seen this film?
It's been a good while on this one, but what I remember about this film is obviously is an absolutely phenomenal cast. I mean, you're talking at this point very young people who had actors and actresses who had a massive influence on films in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, even you didn't even mention Paul Reiser when you were talking about the cast, Kevin, but I mean, Gutenberg, Rourke, Bacon, Stern, and of course the absolutely stunning, as always, Ellen Barkin. This movie is one of those ones that I really do think it should be on a must-see list if you're a movie aficionado. You need to make a point to see this film and just appreciate it for what it is. In the meantime, I'm going to go get a fresh bowl of popcorn because I just feel like I need one.
I have to mention I'm going to say the performance that surprised me the most seeing it first time was Kevin Bacon, because he was playing someone that was on the edge.
Very likable. What's
that?
And not very likable. He wasn't
exactly, and that's what I found fascinating. He was kind of a jerk too, and he got drunk a lot and started in trouble. And he was the guy in your friends that would get out of control, and you guys would have to wrangle him back in. You guys, growing up, you always had one of those guys like that, and I did as well. So
yeah, but he was still a bigger jerk in Whitewater Summer.
This is true, just a tad.
This is
all right. Then
this is a very key element when you're playing 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. This is one of those films that can send you in many different directions.
Yes, or just do it in 1 degree pretty much. So yeah. All right, guys. The next film I had to put in here because I found it fascinating. I have not seen Penitentiary 1, but I had to list Penitentiary 2. He's too fast, too quick, and too fisted. He's too sweet, and he's back for revenge. An ex-con on parole is trying to straighten his life out. All right. Decides to resume his boxing career when one of his prison enemies escapes and kills his girlfriend. Now, I didn't see the first one, but I do have the second one on DVD. For one big reason that sold me, because this is Mr. T's film debut. Mr. T. Directed by... What's that, Kyle?
I Pity the Fool.
Oh, I knew that was coming. And we'll be coming back to that later on. Director John Mafranca, also the writer, stars Leon Isaac Kennedy, Glenn Turman, Ernie Hudson, and Mr. T. I have 3 takeaways from this. First of all, it's maybe 4. It's very black exploitation, basically. The main actor though, Leon Isaac Kennedy, I did like though. And they have to explain why he has to go back into the penitentiary and fight. What's funny is at the beginning of this film, after a little bit of acting and opening credits, there's a Star Wars crawl that lasts way too long, explaining why and what happened at the end of the first film and the big one. It just goes on and on for a while, which I thought was really weird. But there is literally like 2 pages of dialogue and a Star Wars angled scrawl, which I thought was very interesting. The other takeaway was seeing Mr. T as kind of a nice guy. Not completely, but it was kind of cool. My other takeaway was Ernie Hudson was jacked in this film, and he was playing a very bad guy. He was the villain, and he was completely bald, but he was actually kind of good in this. Anyone else in this film? Anyone?
I haven't seen it, but I just want to bring up the point that Ernie Hudson is immortal because it seems like he's just in. It's like you can go to any decade. Ernie Hudson's been in a film.
Lacey?
I haven't seen it, but just because it was so small, I hadn't read that top line. And when you spoke the words, he's too fast, too quick, and too fisted. In my head, it was a completely different direction because I was thinking
you went to porn, didn't you?
And I was like, well, the cover is a little like there's a little bit like there's some oil and stuff on the cover. Like
there's no popcorn in this movie,
right? I was like, no, what? No.
Quick little trivia on this film, though. Mr. T was recommended by Sylvester Stallone. The big fight scene between Mr. T and Ernie Hudson was originally longer and more elaborate, but had to be cut down for reasons. And an old vacant building was used as a makeshift studio for this film. So there you go. It only made about $662,000 in the theater, but it found it got a little more popular later because I don't know if you guys know this. We're going to find out, but Rocky 3 comes out several months later. And then, of course, this movie finds probably a bigger and made. I bet you this movie made more money in video rentals than they actually did in the theater. I don't know that for sure offhand, but I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there. So, All right, the next film, we got Mr. Chuck Norris here, called Silent Rage. Made about $10 million in the theater. And the poster says, "Science created him. Now Chuck Norris must destroy him. He's an indestructible man fused with powers beyond comprehension. An unstoppable terror who in the final showdown will push Chuck Norris to his limits and beyond." A sheriff tries to stop a killing spree of a silent maniac murderer who is the result of a secret genetic experimentation by an unethical scientist, has the ability to self-heal. Directed by Michael Miller, starring Chuck Norris, Ron Silver, and Stephen Keats. In the Silent Rage soundtrack, the song "It's the Time for Love" was sang by Katie Seagal. Peg Bundy from Married with Children and credited as Katie Seagal. By the way, real quick, Aaron and I watched Valley Girl. And when you watch Valley Girl, the Plimsolls are playing at the old Viper Room before Viper Room became Viper Room. And you can see a sign in the background of real people that were scheduled to play there. And Katie Seagal was on that sign, just so you know.
Yeah, she was quite the singer back in the day.
The first terror suspense movie of Chuck Norris, all 5 of his previous motion pictures had been action adventures. While this film contains both action and adventure, there is a constant element of horror throughout as Norris battles the killer, realizing that almost nothing can stop him. This movie has often been labeled as Chuck Norris versus Michael Myers, the latter being the multiple maniac murder character from the Halloween film series. I didn't like this film, guys. There were some funny scenes with him and bikers that they had to deal with. Basically, it's a guy that he has PTSD, I think, from, I want to say Vietnam maybe, and they kind of try to help this PTSD, but something goes wrong, and he basically murders his wife and then goes on a killing spree. And there's a couple interesting fight scenes, but and there's some weird scenes with Chuck Norris and his girlfriend trying to get back together, and this really weird, like, kind of nerdy cop that he's with takes place in Texas. I kind of feel like it's a prequel to Walker Texas Ranger, when he decides to like get rid of his lame partner and then he goes on, but it's not a good movie. Anyone seen this?
No, but I will say this: when I see Ron Silver in the cast, I know something messed up is going to happen.
This is true. This is true. All right, next, let's go ahead and hit Wrong is Right. Never heard of this film and started doing this. And this is a satire of American news reporting, covert agencies and political system. The theft of 2 suitcase nuclear weapons and their sale to a terrorist group leads television newsman Patrick Hale on an international chase to track them down and uncover the twisted maze of apparent involvement in U.S. government agencies. Directed by Richard Brooks, writer Charles McCary from the novel The Better Angel, stars Sean Connery, George Griswold, and Robert Conrad. This movie had been said to have possibly anticipated future world events. James Plath of DVD Town said of this movie that it is impossible to watch it more than 20 years later without seeing a ton of eerie similarities to the Bush White House, while Paul McGilliot of Celluloid Heroes wrote, "The idea of the U.S. going to war in the Middle East over dubious claims of terrorists possessing weapons of mass destruction, specifically atomic bombs, is central to the plot. The discovery of the aforementioned bombs dangling from the antenna on top of the World Trade Center is possibly far more chilling now than the filmmakers could ever intended." This movie was retitled from Wrong is Right to The Man with the Deadly Lens in mostly English-speaking territories after it failed at the box office in the U.S. The movie is a satire of American news reporting and political system and covert agencies, according to the movie's production notes. Sir Sean Connery, Robert Conrad, and John Saxon in this film all passed away in 2020. Guys, I'd never heard of this film. Did this film get buried away? Anyone seen this? Lacey?
I have not seen this under either name. It says a very funny look at the world, but just the visual of it is something that seems like something I probably wouldn't watch. Just it seems very doomsday.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, Kyle, thoughts?
I have never seen or heard of this either, and considering it's Sean Connery, that's kind of surprising. This is Lacey brings up the point about this doomsday thing, but this was, you look at the time this 80s came out. The nuclear threat was, they worked that into everything they absolutely could. One way or the other, the nuclear threat was there, whether it was a comedy, a drama, an action film, a horror movie. It was always there, and especially at this point in the 80s.
I gotta see if it's available because I'm kind of curious about this. Because I'd never seen this anywhere until I was doing research for 82, so I had to bring this up. Now, the next film, Kyle, you gave me a cool present a couple of years ago, a really big book of awesome VHS cover art. Mm-hmm. And this one definitely made the cut for obvious reasons, and that is Forbidden World, a science fiction horror in deep space. On planet Zarbia, an experimental life form, Subject 20 has been created by an elite group of researchers in hope of preventing a galactic food crisis. However, when Subject 20 becomes deadly, the best troubleshooter in the galaxy is called to investigate. Directed by Alan Holtzman, stars Jesse Vint, Don Dunlap, June Chadwick. During a screening, Roger Corman, who produced this, actually smacked an audience member on the head for laughing at the film. When Roger left the theater, the guy he punched poured soda all over his head from the balcony. Approximately 6 minutes of footage was removed from the original pre-release assembly on orders of producer Roger Corman, who was angered by witnessing test screening audience laughing uproariously at some of the comedic passages that were removed. And the film uses the same film sets designed by James Cameron for Roger Corman's Galaxy of Terror in 81. Yes, that James Cameron. The effect footage from the initial space battles, all recycled from Roger Corman's Battle Beyond the Stars from 1980. I literally just watched this for the first time yesterday and finished it today. I think it was streaming. What do you want to guess, Kyle?
Could it have come from Tubi?
Yes, it came from Tubi, definitely. But it has, I got to tell you, yes, okay, the movie's a little claustrophobic. It's basically an Alien ripoff with a little bit of Star Wars-y stuff thrown in there and, from other stuff as well. But it's mostly an Alien ripoff. Alien looks very Alien as well. The sets, the effects are very cheesy, but I think I read that it won a Saturn Award for its use of effects on a limited budget. And you can tell on the wall that they took like styrofoam food containers and turned them backwards and made the whole wall thing out of it. It was pretty interesting. Has anyone else seen this?
No,
I have not, but it's a Roger Corman film. So, as much like you talked about with the trivia, Corman took it very seriously. Everybody else, not so much.
I just want to say, yes, there's gratuitous violence and nudity in this film, but got to tell you, one of my favorite movie posters from the 80s, got to give it to that. If I had that poster, I might put it up. I'm just saying. So, yeah.
No.
All right, guys. The next film I find very interesting. And, of course, we're recording in June right now, and it's Pride Month. We're going to talk about Partners here. Have not seen it. Poster says, Benson is a cop who wants to clean up the streets. His partner just wants to redecorate. In the theater, made about $4 million. A heterosexual police detective is unnerved when ordered to go undercover with a homosexual police clerk as a couple to solve series of murders in a gay community. Directed by famed television, more now he does television, James Burrows. He's directed pretty much every sitcom through the 80s and 90s, including, of course, Cheers and Friends. Guy is a legend when it comes to directing. Stars Ryan O'Neal, John Hurt, and Kenneth McMillan. The movie was allegedly intended as a parody of Al Pacino's undercover cop movie Cruising, 1980. DVDdirect.com states the movie is basically William Friedkin's Cruising turned into a sitcom. This is the only theatrical movie directed by James Burrows. He has directed numerous television movies. The movie was a twist on the American buddy movie by adding a homosexual theme and was frequently described as the gay odd couple. This reference was even made in some of the movie's taglines, which read the oddest team in the squad. I kind of want to see this film. I had never heard of this film before. Lacey, have you heard of this film?
I did. I actually ordered it, and just before this podcast, I looked to see when it was, because I ordered it way back.
Yeah.
And it's actually scheduled to be delivered tomorrow.
So you ordered it from LA, but it went to China first, and then it went to Australia, and then
took that left turn at Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Kyle, have you seen this film or heard of it?
I have not seen this film, but I gotta be honest. I think Ryan O'Neal's a little bit overrated anyway. So,
yeah, okay.
I like Ryan O'Neal. I mean, I don't dislike him. I can only name like half a dozen movies that he's done, but.
Lacee, real quick, can you say where you ordered it from?
Amazon.com.
Okay, cool. I'm curious to get your thoughts on it. I might see if it's streaming somewhere because I do find it interesting. I do want to see it because I got to say there was a lot of this coming to theaters, and it was starting to get more accepted. Like we mentioned, Victor Victoria and several other films that had gay actors. And in Victor Victoria, instead of saying the F word or homosexual, he says. Or I think it was, did he say he preferred homosexual or was it gay? I think he said homosexual. He did one of those. I thought it was fascinating. This was starting to happen in the 80s here, which I think was very cool. So I find this fascinating. So let me know when you see it and let me know what you think of it. So yeah. Cool. All right, guys, next film. The Sword and the Sorcerer, a mercenary with a 3-bladed sword discovers his royal heritage, dangerous future when he's recruited to help a princess foil the designs of a brutal tyrant and a powerful sorcerer in conquering the land. And yes, I have it on physical media. I've been meaning to get it on physical media for a while. Directed by Albert Puen, stars Lee Horsley, Kathleen Beller, Simon McClurkindale, and our friend from Highlander, Kyle, Mr. Anthony DeLongis from the Highlander TV series. Also a whipmaster who, by the way, is celebrating the 30th anniversary of Batman 2, Batman Returns, where he was the personal stunt trainer for Michelle Pfeiffer, teaching her how to use the bullwhip.
There's your worst jobs out there.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. But I want to give a shout out to Anthony, good friend and stuntman and still working actor, great guy. A little tragedy though on the set here. Stuntman Jack Tyree was killed when he jumped off a cliff and missed his airbags. Richard Mall only played the sorcerer in the opening scene because he had a bad reaction to the contact lenses and was sent to the hospital. Zusha's other scenes at the end of the movie were done by stand-in later, and it was dubbed by Mall. The exterior shot of the castle, another Highlander reference here, used to portray Cromwell's fortress is actually that of Eilean Castle, which is the small island off the town of Dorney, Scotland. And of course, that is the actual castle they filmed the beginning of the original 1986 Highlander 2. And I got to give a shout out to Richard Lynch as the villain in Cromwell in this. He was really good in this. Of course, my favorite villain is when he was the villain in Invasion USA. Kyle, you teased about the weapon in this film. I was impressed by this weapon. Tell me more, sir.
Okay, first of all, when you're talking about your physical media releases, I got to give a holler out to Shout Factory for actually putting out a 4K remastered version of this recently. So this movie
I think someone in this panel might have that, and we'll get to that.
Yeah. So there is that, but no. This movie contains one of the most audacious yet absolutely fun weapons of sword and sorcery type fantasy films ever. You have this absolutely huge sword, but Kevin, not only is this sword just big, audacious, and tri-bladed, it has spring-loaded firing action as well.
Projected blade, baby.
This sword goes down as such great weapons as the glaive, as weapons that, yes, this needs to exist in real life. We need to have this. And Kevin, I know after you watched this movie, you were feeling that way too.
Oh God, yes. It looked cool, and it even looked cool when it was in its scabbard on the side of the horse. I'm like, that is pretty darn cool. Lacee, yeah. What do you got there? What do you got there in front of you?
I got the 4K.
Nice. How does it look at 4K or Blu-ray?
Well, the Blu-ray is fantastic. I don't actually have 4K capabilities yet because my computer room has not been finished at this point.
Show it one more time. Your copy. There it is. Nice. Yeah, very cool. So, you're a fan of the film, obviously, I assume.
I'd never seen it. And it's interesting. I watched all the special features. I watched the film. I watched all the special features, with the exception of the commentary. I didn't have a chance to actually get into the commentary. It was it took itself like a little bit too seriously for me. Mm-hmm. I wish there'd been a little bit more comedy in it. I think, especially after watching all the interviews, the lead actress was 19 at the time, and her interview, I guess, was very recent. This is a new commentary specifically for the 4K. So all the special features are basically like 4 or 5 dudes talking about how like this was so important and all this kind of stuff, and then like the woman talking about how.
Hold on, real quick. Clarify: is the movie taking it too seriously because of what the guys were saying about it, or when you were actually watching it?
When I first saw it, I was like, wow, I wish this was funnier, because first of all the dudes had the same haircut and the same hair color, and I had trouble figuring out who was who.
Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And it wasn't until like they all had different smiles, different teeth, but that's how I had to identify them, because they were all like muscly with the brown hair, and it was anyway. But then the actress is talking about how like all of the higher ups in the film came from like exploitation movies, and how they were trying to force the women into doing nudity when they didn't want to, and they like made all of these like body doubles cry and all this kind of stuff, and it was like really a bad set. And that kind of made me not want to listen to the commentary. It's the first time I've ever had a commentary just sitting there waiting, and I was just like, you know what? No, I don't want to hear what he has to say.
Gotcha.
It really did. But I will say that you do find out that the director was basically pushed aside after like the first week of shooting, and the producers gave creative control to the AD.
Interesting. The assistant director. Gotcha.
He's the guy who was the exploitation person.
Albert Puen, who was the director listed, as you mentioned, that's what he also directed Cyborg with Van Damme. Mm-hmm. And what else has he done here? He's still busy doing stuff here. Yeah. The Sorcerers, that one there as well. Yeah. Omega Doom, I believe that was with Rutger Hauer as well. So he's a brain smasher, a love story with Andrew Dice Clay, if I remember correctly, too. So, yeah.
The other thing is, like, I obviously didn't see this until, like, last week, but I do remember a friend of mine's brother had the sword that was a toy. There was a toy made of the sword for this film, and it was just kind of Nerf gun-ish, but not actually soft.
Weird that an R-rated film would release a toy like that during that time. It makes sense now, so that's interesting. Well, for me with sword and sorcery films, there's certain things that it has to have. I expect them to be ridiculous, and this film was definitely ridiculous. But the film had a good villain, also had I would say a good hero, but it should have a cool weapon of some type, and it had that. But the best part that I liked about this was did the hero have a bunch of cool friends that would join him on the quest and thing? And I think they did too. I thought that was cool. So yeah.
I did find it interesting in reading some of the trivia after watching the interviews, because the one person that the lead actress loved the most was the guy who was the bad guy. What was his name? I'm completely missing his name.
Lynch. Richard Lynch. Yes.
Yeah. Apparently, he went on a bad LSD trip and set himself on fire.
Yep.
And then
that's why he has all of these marks on his face.
All the marks and stuff. I remember.
But it helped his career, though.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't an actor before that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like when I first saw him, I was like, wow, he's kind of got like almost like a Voldemort thing going on with like his nose.
Yeah, he's got all these little pop marks on his face that are scarred, but it helped his career because he went on to do villains.
The interview, I was like, oh, I feel bad for like like, I wasn't judging him, but I was just like, oh, he looks a little bit like Bond.
I was pleasantly surprised by it. I'm keeping it. I love it. Are you keeping yours?
It'll go on the shelf. I mean, I feel like it's worthy of being on the shelf. I just don't know how often I'll watch it with, All
right. Kyle?
Just real quick, 1982, 3 of the greatest barbarian movies ever made.
This one, Conan.
Beastmaster.
Yeah, we'll be getting to those later. So yeah. All right, the last film that I have for this episode that I want to dive into a little bit, of course, is Tag, the assassination game. College assassination game turns deadly as someone starts playing for real. Directed by Nick Castle, stars Robert Carradine, nerd, Linda Hamilton, and Kristen DeBell. The Tag game is modeled after Killer by Steve Jackson Games. Killer refers to the scenario used as the Circle of Death. One of the rules specified in Killer is that the game can be limited to certain hours of the day. Tag is played from an unspecified time in the morning until midnight. The schedule on the Tag victim profile begins at 8 a.m. To 8 p.m. presumably, or 8 a.m. to 8 a.m. If I didn't do that typo, and would be the latest game would start to run at midnight. Forrest Whitaker's movie debut. Linda Hamilton, who is Susan Swayze, and Bruce Abbott, Lauren Gresh met on the set and were married for a 7-year period following the film's 1982 release. Filming took place at UCLA. Much more recent and famous movies have been credited with filming there, and even the similar 1985 flick Gotcha credits UCLA as one of the filming locations, but nowhere in UCLA mentioned in the credits Tag, nor apparently is the location common knowledge to most Tag fans. Okay, guys, I didn't know about this movie till years later. I did play a version of Killer, the game, but I didn't know it was part of this whole underground thing. And I played for a brief while, and it didn't last long because when our high school found out, they said no. But it was one of those things where, like, you guys all had to have the same dart suction gun. You were only allowed, I think, one dart at the time. I think other rules varied. And when you killed someone, you had to give them something, and then you had to contact the person running the game and let them know. If you missed or your opponent missed, you were able to pick up the dart again and use it again. But there's other rules that go into this. And I got to tell you guys, I recently just watched it. I want to say I've seen parts of it before, but all the way through. Forgot about Linda Hamilton and how charming and cute she is in this film. I just, Linda. Lacey, have you seen this film?
I vaguely remember seeing it. I know I've seen it. I remember very specifically this one shot of Carradine in, like, the shadows with kind of the light coming on one side of him. I very much, like, that's in my memory banks for some unknown reason. I want to say, and I don't know if this is necessarily true, but this is what I vaguely remember in the movie Gotcha, starring Anthony Edwards. Wasn't that the game they were playing at the beginning of the movie?
Yes, it was an iteration of it. Yes, definitely. Right. Yeah. Would
that not have been an homage to his Revenge of the Nerds friend or co-star, because they were in Revenge of the Nerds together?
That makes sense. Yeah,
definitely. I feel like that was what they were playing at the beginning of that movie.
Kyle, seen this?
I've seen Gotcha, though.
Okay. Kyle, have you seen this?
I have. It's, again, one of those ones. I remember watching it on cable back in the day, and it's probably been that long since I've seen it. I do know this, that in the yearbook, Linda Hamilton was voted most likely to prevent an apocalyptic future.
Well played, sir. Well played. I picked up a physical copy of it. I'm going to keep this. And Robert Carradine's really good in this. He's, to me, he's always, what's his name from Revenge of the Nerds, but Lewis, yes. But he was actually quite fun in this.
Where did you get your copy?
Somewhere online, and I tell you, it doesn't look legit.
Oh yeah. Gotcha.
Hold on, let me find out. Yeah, it's not legit. So I'm not going to tell you where I got it.
Yeah. Well, I know that I looked for it when this first came up, and I knew we were going to watch it, and I looked for it to find it, and I could only find it in a double feature.
Yeah, here's like a picture.
Gotcha.
But they did a pretty good job with it. But I liked it. I was able to play it. So yeah, so there you go. Okay, guys, we have that is it for April, January, March, April. But we do have some stuff quickly that was on the cutting room floor that we didn't have time for, but we did want to mention them. Basket Case, horror film. We also have A Little Sex. We also have Some Kind of a Hero, another Richard Pryor film. We have Pandemonium, if I remember. Is that how it said? Yeah, Pandemonium. We also have See What I Can Hear. Hold on to your thoughts there. Hold on. I knew you want to talk about that. And Smash Palace. Am I saying that right? Yes, Smash Palace. And then also we have Soup for One. With Saul Rubinek in it as well. What else do we got there? That's it pretty much for the cutting report. Now, you wanted to talk about one of these, didn't you, Lacey? Let's go back to this one right here. You have a couple seconds.
Yeah, sure. There's actually two of them. If you could see what I hear was, I remember it was based on a book. It was a true story, and I remember
a light comedy based on the true life of blind musician Tom Sullivan. Tom Sullivan novel, and Derek Gill contributed.
Yes, and so I mean,
starring Mark Singer.
Yeah, but this guy was amazing. There are so many things in film history that have kind of been pulled from this guy's life story. It's just an interesting movie. If you have a chance to watch it, take a look.
Okay. What was the other one?
Pandemonium. It's like the only horror movie that I would actually watch because it's a send up. It's a spoof on all of the different horror movies. So it's basically like a combination of Porky's and a comedy spoof. I mean, a horror spoof.
Damn it! Now you're selling me on it. A former high school student who always wanted to be a cheerleader decides to reopen the cheerleading program at her former high school after years of closure after being targeted by a serial killer. So yeah, this is what happens after the real serial killer movie happens. It's
Scary Movie before Scary Movie.
Carol Kane is in it. Okay, all right. Well, see, that's why we bring it up, because it's moments like this, Lacey, that you sell it for us. So yeah. Okay.
So maybe we'll watch that for like the ones that we missed for last time, and I promise I will watch Parasite to see what the clothing and the
okay. All right. Okay.
Like.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, let's go ahead and wrap things up here. Okay, so that's the question that we like to ask here. Is of these movies that we talked about, which movies, if any, would you consider watching if you haven't seen them already? Lacey, real quick, which ones?
I'm definitely going to see Pandemonium. I'm going to watch Partners, and I'll watch Parasite. I'll at least scan through Parasite.
Yeah, Partners I am very curious about, definitely. What else? I gotta find that Wrong is Right. I'm very curious about that right now. Really, really curious about that. Kyle, what about you?
I think it's got to be Penitentiary Too.
Really?
Yeah. Come on, it's Mr. T. It's Ernie Hudson. You got to have a little fun with that. You need a little.
I might have to mail that to you, but not put enough postage on it. Did that bring back bad memories, Kyle? I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Traumatized to this day.
All right, guys. Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. We've got projects. Any final thoughts on this section of movies, there, Lacey?
You know what? This week was like a really interesting toss-up. Like this month, these 2 months, there's a lot of different genres supported, and there's kind of a little bit something for everybody. I think this particular podcast.
That's a good one. That's a good point, actually. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Kyle.
There's a little smattering of what's to come, because we're talking about 1982, and this gives you a few things in that warm-up. You got Porky's, you got a few other things, some actors with big names, but Kevin, it's all about the summer movies of 1982.
That's coming up. Yep, some huge movies are coming up next show, so definitely. Well, I want to thank you guys for joining us for Time Warp 1982, 40 years later, part 2, and that's, of course, March and April. And as you teased, Kyle, next podcast. We're doing part 3 of 82. May and June, we're going to cover some movies. Annie, Rocky 3, Tac Force Z, Hanky Panky, Poltergeist, Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan. And I have a hot take for that. I have an issue with that film. I'm going to explain later. E.T. the Extraterrestrial, and Lacey, it's going to happen.
I'm so excited.
You, our friend Jen, and my lovely wife, we're going to be doing Grease 2 Couch Potato Theater. I've never seen it, so I'm going to watch it for the first time and wrangle you ladies in on that. So we're going to cover that. Also, Firefox, Blade Runner, The Thing, and Megaforce.
Okay. Kevin, may I do something here?
Yes, you may.
We are headed into the next part of 1982, where we are going to learn about dead meat. They're here. Con! How to phone home. What a cool writer is. And of course, it all wraps up with deeds, not words.
Well said, Kyle. Deeds, not words. I got to get that freaking tattoo done one of these days. Guys, first of all, let's go ahead and get into some contact information here. First of all, if you're listening to this podcast, we urge you to also watch it as well. It's on YouTube, and you can see all these posters we've been throwing up there because they're fun and they are works of art. The 80s was a wonderful time for movie posters. It's a lost art, and I miss it. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please give us some likes and love there. We appreciate that. Our master feed for our audio podcast is fpnet.podbean.com. And as we mentioned, the Fandom Podcast Network is on all major podcast platforms. Fandom Podcast Network is on Facebook. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. And Fandom Podcast Network is also on Instagram and Twitter. My name is Kevin Reitzel. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Spartan_Phoenix. Kyle, Mr. Kyle Wagner, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AKyleW, and you can find me dispensing great wisdom like you love them in red, you love them in blue, but most of all, you love them in blue. On Instagram at AKyleFandom.
Stop stealing our thunder for possibly our second attempt at Couch Potato Theater for Megaforce. We've been teasing that.
Kevin, you can never have enough Megaforce.
This is true. God, I freaking love Megaforce. And now they have something cool out of Australia, which we'll have to talk about later. Lacey, first of all, Lacey, thank you again for coming. I've missed you. I've missed you so much.
We bow to the movie foo.
I've missed you guys too. But I did follow all of the wedding stuff, and it was so exciting. And
thank you.
Congratulations and best wishes to Miss Erin if she's, when she sees this. I'm so excited for you guys, and I can't wait for y'all to show us more fun, crazy road trips and all that kind of stuff. So
that means the world to me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. Where can we find you on social media?
I am on the Facebook and the Twitter and the Instagram, and I think that's it. All of them are under Lacey Pants.
Nice. All right. Please support us on your podcast platforms. Please leave us reviews. Just search Fandom Podcast Network, and please let us know what you think. And also on TeePublic, I've got my TeePublic Time Warp t-shirt, but of course we've got logos from all of our shows on TeePublic. Just do a search there for Fandom Podcast Network. We much appreciate it. Kyle, thank you so much for coming on, brother. Love doing these with you.
Oh, it's always fun for a couple of movie buffs to get together and then be schooled by the queen of movie food. So, what can we say?
This is true. Queen of movie foo, Lacey, again, thank you so much for coming on for 1982 Part 2. Are you looking forward to Part 3?
I'm so excited about Part 3. I'm so excited.
Some good stuff there. Some good stuff. Guys, thank you so much. We're going to head on out of here. And until next time, we will see you in 1982.